buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
This is my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a two-way nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator, and live around the world on the interwebs at MichaelDukesShow.com, where you'll find links to the audio-only stream, links to our social media sites like Facebook and YouTube and Rumble, where you can watch the simulcast as well, and so much more. Good morning, my friends. It's that one day a week where we get a chance to talk about our favorite topic, the Second Amendment. We had to put it all in one day because otherwise we'd be talking about it, all throughout the week. Just, spring. We don't need that. We need one day where we can focus on it and we can do that. And we're blessed to have been able to do that this week. Lots of stuff to come up. Today's going to be a contentious show. I can tell you right now that some of you are going to be mad at me, at our guest, at everything else, because we're going to talk a little bit about the Second Amendment in regards to Donald Trump and his administration, the actions in Minneapolis, what's been going on there. Now, JD Tuccille from Reason Magazine, contributing editor from Reason, is waiting in the wings. We're about to jump into it with him. And he and I may disagree on a few things, but overall, I think we're in agreement on some of the troubling aspects of what has happened since this last shooting of Alex Preddy. And the actions of the administration, which seems a little bit schizophrenic, quite honestly. The irony of the fact that Janine Shapiro was crowing about how they weren't going to enforce the open carry of long guns or the high-capacity magazine bans in Washington, D.C., and then immediately does it about face and says, if you bring a gun, you're going to jail, period. Laws have meaning. Unless, of course, rights trump those laws. But anyway, we're going to get into that. JD Tuccille has just written an article that came out, in fact, this morning, talking about this conflicted relationship with the Second Amendment. So without further delay, let's bring him on the program and chit chat about it. JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine, our guest. Good to see you, my friend. How is life treating you guys down there in the sunny desert or high desert or the desert?
Doing pretty well. We're topping out in the 70s this frigid February, so I can't complain too terribly.
Hey, don't worry. It's warmer here than it is in Florida right now. Okay, 35 degrees in where I'm at right now, so it's all good. Thanks for coming on, JD. I hope you had a happy holiday. We haven't talked in a little bit, so hope you enjoyed your time down and had a good one.
Very much so, and the same to you. I hope it worked out well for you too.
Yeah, it's been a great year and a great start to the year. I can't believe we're into February already. Can't believe we're into Friday already. Monday was just yesterday. So, but let's get into this because JD, there's been a lot of contention. And in fact, what's been interesting to watch is how even firearms groups and people inside the gun culture, they kind of been fighting each other over some of this stuff. I watched my friend Rob Pincus, who is he's a professional trainer and a writer and he's an amazing guy inside the Second Amendment. And he's been posting a bunch of stuff on Facebook and just getting raked over the coals by Second Amendment supporters saying, oh, he's so wrong. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's that. Again, kind of kowtowing to the God Emperor complex is what I call it, of everybody saying that Trump must be absolutely right on everything. And he's just trying to be principled and point out to the fact that, hey, these are rights that you can't just, throw around. You've got this new article, and you actually wrote another article talking about the shift in immigration enforcement and everything else that we can get into. But let's talk about your latest one, this kind of conflicted relationship that Trump has with the Second Amendment and what's been going on with his subordinates on this. Let's get into this.
Yeah, absolutely. But there have been comments about the Trump administration's, mixed attitude towards the Second Amendment dating back to his first term. I mean, if you remember his comments about let's take the guns away first, and then we'll worry about the due process afterwards. But right now, especially in the immediate aftermath of the Alex Preddy shooting in Minneapolis, because Preddy had a concealed carry permit, he was carrying legally. And as soon as he was taken down and killed by Border Patrol agents, people like Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, and Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, were saying that he had no business being there with a firearm, that you can't just carry a gun to a protest, which is patently untrue. Courts have ruled that you can carry a firearm to a protest as long as you're peacefully assembling. You're not using it. Preddy never drew his firearm. And you're not using it in a violent way. I mean, you have the right to carry there as much as you have the right to carry anyplace else in public. So the Second Amendment was under fire from Trump administration officials in an administration that had been elected partially on the support of Second Amendment supporters, people who believe strongly in the right to keep and bear arms. And it shows this kind of mixed messaging within the administration. And I think I understand why this is. I mean, the administration is deeply conflicted over anything that involves pushback against the state, even as it owes political favors and support to a big part of its base.
I would agree with that. I think they understand. And again, I've said it often that you have an authoritarian tendency inside this administration. And you actually say it in your article. The Second Amendment is kind of like the ultimate anti-authoritarian trump card, right? I mean, it's kind of that's right out of the playbook of anti-authoritarianism, is an armed society being able to push back against a government that's overreaching. And Trump has authoritarian tendencies. I mean, he basically, I make the joke about God Emperor, but he basically says he's only constrained by his own morals. I can do anything I want. I'm only constrained by my own morals. That's not what the Constitution says. And so he has these tendencies, and yet when he gets that pushback, then he just starts talking without really thinking. I mean, he tells the room a lot of times what it wants to hear simply because he's the deal maker. That's kind of who he is.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, this is a country, the United States, that was founded in an armed revolution. The Second Amendment came out of that tradition, recognizing a pre-existing, right to keep and bear arms, but one that had been exercised during the revolution to overthrow a government and replace it, and to fight its troops, and to kill a great many of them. So inherently, the Second Amendment is about resistance to authority. That's why it was put in place. And that's the right it recognizes. It's not the right to go hunting or to go target shooting, but the right to resist the state and to own the means of doing so. And that applies no matter who is in office. I mean, because if you're going to be consistent in supporting a right, it means you support it for everybody, no matter which party holds office at that time. So, I mean, American Second Amendment supporters tend to the right, although that's not as much true now as it was in years past. But by and large, it tends to be a conservative to libertarian movement. And nominally, and that's another issue to discuss, but nominally, the Trump administration is a administration of the right. So you'd think that they'd go hand in hand together, except that in his first term, Donald Trump explicitly said, I'm the president, I can do anything I want, citing a non-existent Article 2 authorization for the president to have absolute power. And more recently, he told the New York Times that in the context of global relations, that he's constrained only by his personal morality and his own mind. Both of these things are troubling aspects in the government, in the president of a republic, but because they're deeply authoritarian. And they also come into conflict with the anti-authoritarian nature of the Second Amendment and also
Right.
of all the other protected rights. I mean, the right to basically to tell the president that he's a jerk and to do something about it is inherent in the protections of the Bill of Rights for our natural and inherent rights, and those traditions are running up against each other.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And look, he did. Somebody just said, "I've not heard Trump make any conflicted comments." Keep it in context. He did make conflicted context. He sat on the White House lawn, right next to the helicopter, and he said, "You can't have guns. You can't have guns." Kristi Noem came out with this narrative within an hour. This narrative that Peretti was going to attack law enforcement officers and do these things. You had Janine Shapiro again screeching about how she's going to put people in jail. Those things, Kash Patel saying you can't take these things. Again, these are false. These are false statements. I mean, look, I voted for Trump. I think he was better than the alternative. I'm all for that. But you got to call things out when they're doing it wrong. When President Trump said in his first term during the Parkland shooting, we're going to take the guns and worry about due process later, I took so much heat because I said that is wrong, and he is 100% wrong for that, and he's attacking the Second Amendment. I took a lot of heat because people were like, Trump's our guy. He can do no wrong. He can do wrong, and the only way we're going to hold him accountable is if we call it out.
That's absolutely right. I mean, and to make it specific to Trump, he has on several occasions said that he doesn't like it. When people bring powerful firearms, and as he said, to protests. He said he's uncomfortable with the idea that Peretti had a gun at the protest. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, and that's on top of the comments like Stephen Miller, who called anybody who carried a gun, he called Peretti a domestic terrorist. Kristi Noem says you're not allowed to carry a gun to protests, and Kash Patel saying these things. So it goes straight to the top. I mean, it's the president and then his high officials below him saying that you're not supposed to carry a firearm to protest and that they're uncomfortable when people are armed. And there's a reason for this. I mean, this is a president who has, no matter what anybody else may think of him, he's deeply uncomfortable with being criticized. We've seen that in his interactions with his critics in the press and in the public. And he thinks that his power should be unquestioned. And inherently, an armed populace, it's a questioning of this power of the state. It's a constant reminder that whatever constraints beyond the personal morality of the president himself, that the state may have internally, the people act as the final constraint on government power because they're armed and can do something about it. And there is a real conflict between the president's instincts, which are unchallenged authority and thin skin toward criticism, and the protections in the Bill of Rights for natural rights to criticize the government and to actually have the power to impose constraints on a government that is unwilling to constrain itself.
Now, before people think that I walked off the deep end, let me say that there's plenty of blame to go around in this specific incident. Okay. There's plenty of blame to go around. I mean, Peretti he had committed, you've got him on camera committing felonies. He's armed and he's destroying government property, kicking things out, doing that. Now, he never drew his firearm, or anything else, but that's a felony when you're carrying a firearm and you commit destruction or some other kind of crime like that. There's plenty of blame to go around. But what I'm talking about and what JD and I are talking about is the response by the president and his administration to this incident specifically, and his attack on the Second Amendment because of what this person did. And I'm not saying that, by the way, I'm not saying that Peretti deserved to die because of those things. Again, we had that conversation last week. That shooting has got so many problems from a standpoint of deadly use of force, viability. I mean, everything else. There's plenty of blame to go around, but we're talking specifically about the president's reaction to this, which again is knee-jerk and flat out unconstitutional. That's the thing. That's what gets me. This flies directly in the face of the Constitution.
And that's exactly right. And let's be clear, if we're consistent supporters of any right, that means that we support that right even for people with whom we disagree across the board, even for people who are jerks, even for people who believe terrible things and behave in unwise ways. The right has to be consistently protected for everybody, not just for our side and not just for our friends. It means that Alex Peretti had the same rights as Kyle Rittenhouse. And by the way, Kyle Rittenhouse has said that he was he also was unwise in bringing a gun and even attending the protests, where the incident involved him occurred, where he had to defend himself. But being unwise doesn't mean that your rights suddenly evaporate. And believing the wrong things doesn't mean that your rights suddenly evaporate. It has to be consistent for everybody.
Right. The most troubling thing to me is people who are on the side of the Second Amendment or in the gun culture immediately screeching that no protester, anybody who's politically opposed to them, shouldn't be allowed to carry guns, period. Look, that you're not a Second Amendment person then. You're not an absolutist then, because everybody should be allowed to carry a gun until they prove themselves unworthy or unable to carry them within the framework of modern society and the law, doing the right thing. Now, again, we could argue that video of Preddy destroying government property with a firearm, on his side, the video's there. It's very clear. He wasn't arrested at that point, which is kind of weird, but he's there doing it. So we could make that argument that maybe that should be questioned, but that's not the issue here. Everybody should be allowed, if the Second Amendment is the law of the land and it's right, it's there for everybody until they prove otherwise. And I think that's the key component here before we go to break, JD.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to emphasize that incident where Preddy destroyed government property was a separate incident about a week and a half before he was killed. Honestly, the reset button of time had occurred between those two incidents. We can see him being a jerk and committing a crime in one video. Border Patrol and ICE chose not to arrest him, and so did the Minneapolis police chose not to arrest him for that incident. That means it's irrelevant to the second incident when he was taken down and killed. So, I mean, can we infer from the first incident that he had some bad judgment? Yes, we can, but it has nothing to do with the incident where he was killed.
Well, and even the bottom line is, even if those incidents were simultaneously, that doesn't justify a killing. I'm right. I mean, that's the problem. I get really worried because, again, I play the substitution game. What if that had been ATF going around to a gun rally, right? What if that was a gun rally and it was ATF and this is what happened? We'd have a completely different view of this situation. And again, I know it makes a lot of you uncomfortable when we talk about things like this, but that's the truth. You call strikes and you call balls. When you're winning, you call it out. When you're losing or making a mistake, you call it out. That's what's important here. JD Tuccille is our guest, Reason Magazine contributing editor over there. We're going to continue with him here in just a second. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show continues in just a moment. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We're back with more right after this.
Tune in Friday for our weekend entertainment and movie streaming review with our guest critic, Willie Waffle. That's actually his real name. Really? That's his real name? Man, his parents must have hated him. The Michael Dukes Show.
Okay, JD Tuccille is our guest from Reason Magazine. JD, you see the timer over my head here? This is how much time we got before we got to go back to the commercial or from the commercial break. So just and like I said, I knew that this was going to stir up some people here. And there's no doubt that it is. I mean, first they says, well, you're talking about taxes and now you're bashing Trump. Look, I voted for the guy. He's still the better of the two choices that were there. But when he's doing stuff wrong, you got to call him out, right, JD?
Absolutely. And let's be clear here. Voting for somebody doesn't mean, supporting somebody over another candidate doesn't mean that you're wedded to them forever, that you should worship at their altar. We live in a system under a government that is government is always a threat to our liberty. And we have to recognize that even if it's a team we supported in the last election or that we generally support. Government is always a threat to our liberty, and the fact that we happen to share the same party affiliation doesn't mean that the inherent flaws of politicians and of the state go away just because our nominal team happens to be in power at the moment. People from both parties have violated rights consistently over the course of this country's history, and as this country's government gets more powerful, which it has over the last century or so, it becomes more of a danger to our rights, no matter who is in office. So let's be consistent about advocating our rights and our liberty, and do it across the board for everybody, and also recognize the flaws in whoever's in office, no matter which way we voted in the last election.
Right. And I know people here in the comments are getting down into the weeds on Peretti's actions and what he did and why was he off the sidewalk and did he interfere? And look, as I said before, there's plenty of blame in these specific incidences to go around. What JD and I are talking about specifically is the reaction of the administration after that. I mean, if we want to get down into the weeds on this, and we can get JD's thoughts on this, but again, his actions, all the actions, including the incident that happened 11 days before his shooting, all those things still do not call for his death, right? They were incidences. They were hostile. They were poor judgment, whatever you want to call it. But the bottom line is, I would hope that I could still spit on somebody and not get shot. Right. I would hope that I could still do, kick out a taillight, do a few $100s worth of damage and still not get shot for it. I would hope that there'd be proportional response.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I mean, there's plenty of footage if we want to go back to say the anti-COVID lockdown rallies in Wisconsin in 2020, where people on the right showed up at the rallies, carrying long arms, carrying sidearms, and protested. And some of those rallies some of those protests got out of hand also. That doesn't mean the police would have been justified in opening fire on the crowd there, because the crowd wasn't, brandishing their weapons or violently attacking. It meant that protests get rowdy. So again, I think Peretti's shooting was unjustified. I've looked at it, and between the two incidents, Renee Good, I can understand why some people think that shooting was justified. I don't. But the Peretti shooting, to me, it was clearly unjustified, and that doesn't mean he had exercised the best judgment in the world.
Right.
The earlier incident showed him breaking the law and damaging government property. The second incident was much more. I mean, if you look at it, it was much more clear cut in terms of excessive force being used. Lethal force being used against somebody who had already been taken down. It was not a threat. But end of the day, protests are places you can carry a firearm. You cannot use it in the course of the protest. I mean, it's not a protest anymore. Now it's an insurrection. But if it remains holstered, you have the right to have it there. And you should not be, basically have the death penalty applied to you because you happen to anger the local enforcers for the government.
Right. And again, going back to CM's comment where he said, I haven't heard Trump make any conflicted comments, then you're not paying attention. Because again, same thing he said back in Parkland, we'll take the guns and worry about due process later. He sat on the lawn of the White House and told reporters, you can't have guns. You can't have guns at these things. You can't bring guns. Again, it's legal. It's lawful. And I know there's a lot of comments coming in now over this. But again, this is here's a good one. Love your writing, JD. And yep, it always takes two for these conflicts. And again, nobody is always 100% right. There's always a little bit of wrong mixed in here, and that's what we're dealing with when we're looking at this. All right, we got to go. We're jumping back into it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Let's do it.
What the hell's an assault weapon?
If we could just figure out how to get all of the murder guns and the attack guns and not keep selling those to people and just sell protection guns, I think that would be great and solve a lot of problems.
Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
Welcome back. The Michael Dukes Show continues. I think Rick wins the internet today. JD Tuccille is our guest. Rick says, you can argue these points till hell freezes over. Still doesn't change the fact that this guy was stupid. I'm not going to disagree with you that the guy made bad choices. Did he deserve to die for those bad choices is the question. But really the question today is not even really about the specifics of this shooting, but the fact that the administration has such a knee-jerk reaction to these kind of things to immediately come out and say, then you just shouldn't have a gun. I mean, Kash Patel, Janine Pirro, the president himself, Kristi Noem talking about how this guy, was a maniac and he was going to shoot everybody. I mean, again, none of those things have proved out to be true, JD. And it's the troubling aspect of this that gets me, that their immediate reaction is no firearms. That it's an attack on the Second Amendment immediately, not about the lawfulness, not about anything else. It's just that's their knee-jerk reaction.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, first of all, the administration has been wrong on the law, the Constitution, when they say that you're not allowed to bring a gun to a protest. That's simply untrue. The courts have ruled on that, and they're way off base. But beyond that, the insight that it gives us into their thinking, that they're uncomfortable. I mean, the president said he's uncomfortable. He doesn't like it when people bring guns to protests. You know what? You're a government official. Nobody should care whether you're comfortable with it or not. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
When Jeanine Pirro says that you have to obey the law, and the law isn't respectful of our rights. In fact, the administration itself already said that the gun laws in D.C. are not respectful of our rights, and is suing D.C. over that matter. And Jeanine Pirro, who is the U.S. attorney for the District of D.C., comes out and says that she's going to enforce the law, and that if you bring a gun into the district, even if you're a law-abiding, peaceful gun owner elsewhere, she's going to send you to jail. Well, I mean, this overall disdain for self-defense rights that's been expressed by government officials, from the president through the head of DHS, through the head of the FBI, to the U.S. attorney for D.C., it's very consistent. It's very much elevating the law over our natural rights. And it shows a complete and deep discomfort with the idea of an armed populace that exercises its self-defense rights in ways that challenge the authority of the state, which is the core reason for the existence of the Second Amendment.
Right. It is the ultimate impedance to the growth of a tyrannical government. That's what it's the implicit threat, right, that holds government in check, not the outward threat, but the implied threat, knowing you can go this far, but you can't go this much farther because the people are armed and they will rise up and stop you. That's the whole point. And the president just doesn't get this. The bureaucrats who, again, I mean, I've said it dozens of times, but I think that there takes a special kind of sociopathy to be part of big government, bureaucracies and politicians, because they believe that might makes right, and they're there and they're going to tell you what to do, even if they are, again, schizophrenic. With Jeanine Pirro saying, on the one hand, we're not going to enforce this law, the open carry of long guns and the magazine ban. We're not going to bring those cases. But if you bring a gun, it's just so wishy-washy and flip-floppy, and it just does nothing but cause dissension in the ranks of the 2A community itself.
Yeah, it's consistently an elevation of authority in the law over natural rights when those two conflict. And I think that a lot of government officials in the Trump administration actually do get the anti-authoritarian nature of the Second Amendment, and they're really uncomfortable with it. I think that President Trump is, he's not a constitutional scholar or an analyst, but I think fundamentally he's uncomfortable with the idea that an armed populace is there in order to potentially challenge the state, that there's the implied threat. We made a revolution once, and we can do so again if you push us far enough. I mean, fundamentally, that's what the Second Amendment says.
Right.
And I think that rubs the president the wrong way, and it rubs a lot of his closer advisors, the coterie, the wrong way. That doesn't mean that every single official in the Trump administration feels that way. There is a branch within the Department of Justice that's challenging local gun laws, and I would assume it's probably staffed with true believers in the right to keep and bear arms. But the top officials in this administration, like officials in a lot of other administrations, are uncomfortable with an armed populace that has their rights to be armed protected so that they can challenge the state.
And you point out in your article that a lot of the gun rights organizations are not having it, right? I mean, they're stepping up. FPC, GOA. I mean, give me some details here.
Yeah, so far as I can tell, every single gun rights organization has denounced the Trump administration on this. So anybody who wants to defend the Trump administration on this is going to be probably have to turn in their membership card in the NRA or the FPC or the NAGR, depending on the organization that they chose at one point. All of them have denounced the Trump administration's officials for being inconsistent on the Second Amendment, for being absolutely wrong about the right to carry a firearm to a protest, for elevating the law over the natural rights of individuals. I'm a member of the Firearms Policy Coalition. I like them because they tend to be, I think, the most libertarian and the most anti-government of the gun rights groups. And they explicitly called out the administration for elevating law and authority over natural rights. So all of them, Gun Owners of America have denounced the Trump administration on this. Across the board, so far as I can tell, every single group that you could name that supports the right to keep and bear arms has gone against the Trump administration, even at the risk of angering some of their own membership.
We're talking with JD Tuccille from Reason Magazine. His latest article is out right now. The Trump administration has a conflicted relationship with the Second Amendment. I'm dropping links in the chat room for folks who want to go view the article. You can go take a look at it over at reason.com. And this may be where JD and I diverge on this, because I think it's a valid question. You know, do we have, and Layla in the chat room asked it, this whole thing stems, of course, from this immigration crackdown. The ICE, you know, going from city to city and doing it. Now, the surge in Minneapolis has political ramifications. It's not just really about the ICE immigration. It's about but really kind of a punishment against people who have stood against the president. As you said, he doesn't take criticism well. He doesn't take people standing up to him well. So there is a political component to this where they surged this. But I think the main question is, do we have, you know, do we as a nation have the right to remove criminal aliens from our country, and specifically ones who are known to law enforcement to have broken laws, you know, assaults, rapes, murders, you know, children, you know, all that kind of stuff? Do we have the right to do that, JD, in this response?
Well, I think we do, but I think that what we've seen in Minneapolis and in Chicago and in Los Angeles was more in line with an effort to embarrass local Democratic politicians than it was an effort to enforce immigration laws. We also know that there were two factions fighting within the Trump administration. And the more militant ones, headed by Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem, initially won out. Those are the ones who surged, you know, ICE agents and Border Patrol agents and National Guards troops to city streets to round up as many illegal immigrants as they could. The other faction is led by Tom Homan and the head of ICE, and they wanted to target, to enforce what was the originally stated policy, which was going after the worst of the worst, violent criminals, rapists, sex offenders, whatever have you, and not surging troops to city streets. They would have done a more targeted approach. They would have taken a longer period of time, but also been less violent and less high profile. As we see with Tom Homan now in Minneapolis, Homan's faction is coming to the forefront because the Miller-Noem faction has embarrassed the Trump administration and has turned much of the American public so far off of its immigration policy that 46% of the public in a recent poll said they wanted to abolish ICE. If you turn the American public, which voted for Trump largely, you know, to a significant extent because of his stance on immigration issues, so far against immigration policy, they want to abolish ICE, you're doing something wrong. And the more, I mean, and to call Holman a moderate, I think is quite surprising. But within the Trump administration, Holman is a moderate, and his faction's coming to the forefront because it wants to target actual criminals, not just anybody who crossed the border unauthorized.
No, and I agree. I agree that Holman has done a good job when he has been in control of the situation, again, with that targeted thing. And again, don't hear what I'm not saying. Fat Ray just said getting the illegals out is about Trump being defied and not about public safety, national security, and voter integrity. Is that the case really being made? No, that's not what we're saying. I'm saying there is a component of that. When you surge thousands of troops, or ICE agents in this case, to a city, to do this big, wide, publicly available blitz in an effort to embarrass those local officials, you know, this is what's helping create the problem. If you did what JD was just saying, the Holman way of targeted small groups going specifically after these guys, not at a Home Depot parking lot, but finding these guys at their homes or at their work or whatever, that has been much more successful, right, JD? Those tactics have been much more successful across the board.
Yeah, I mean, the constituency for keeping rapists and murderers and gangbangers in the United States is pretty close to zero. It's as close to zero as you're ever going to get. So if you go with the more moderate approach, the original approach stated by the Trump administration of going after the worst of the worst, that is who you'd be deporting, and there wouldn't be such public conflict right now over the immigration issue. Instead, the Trump administration chose to surge ICE agents and Border Patrol agents and National Guardsmen to major American cities, at least as much to humiliate local Democratic officials as to enforce immigration law. And they ended up rounding up families and laborers who had never committed a crime. Three-quarters, let's see, the figures I saw, three-quarters of those they'd rounded up had never even been charged with a crime, other than crossing the border, as an undocumented form. So you're not going after the worst of the worst when you're doing that with what you're seeing in Minneapolis and what we saw in Los Angeles and Chicago. That's not what the administration is doing. And that is what has spawned these protests and has driven public opinion so radically against what the administration is doing. Whereas if you go after the gangbangers, the people who occupied, remember in Colorado, those apartment complexes that were taken over by gangs, if you go after them, if you go after the people who would, take down Lincoln Riley, if you go after the people who are a real threat to the public, you're going to have public support, and you're not going to have this massive public reaction and the conflict that it spawns.
JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine, our guest. We're going to continue here in just a moment. We'll be back. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll continue with JD in just a moment. Back with more right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break with JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine. I mean, I'm in total agreement with you here. Nobody, well, in their right minds, there are plenty of protesters out there who we've seen say something differently, but nobody in their right mind is going to say, yes, let's keep the pedophiles and the rapists and the murderers on the street. We want to protect that. Although, again, there's a bunch of people out there who are so filled with the derangement syndrome that they're like, well, if he wants it, it must be bad. So yes, keep the rapist next door to me. But I mean, no sane person is going, yeah, that's we need to keep those folks. But at the same time, you don't throw gasoline on a house fire, which is essentially I think what the president is doing here. Now, again, what's your position on these cities who have refused to? I mean, Minnesota again has refused to help enforce these laws. I mean, these things could be they could be picking these guys up at the jail. ICE could be picking these guys up at the jail, but the governor and the mayors and the police departments have all decided, no, we're not going to do that and not comply with those laws. What's your take on that?
I think it's foolish. I mean, they have the right to do that. Under our federal system of government, states and localities do not have to help the federal government enforce its laws in any way. They cannot actively impede, but they don't have to help enforce. But that doesn't mean refusing to help is a good idea or good policy. And I think that when you've arrested people who happen to be illegal aliens who have also committed serious crimes, cooperating with ICE is a low-cost way of dealing with actual criminals. These are threats to the public. And so I think choosing to not help the feds enforce these particular laws against criminals who are also undocumented aliens is foolish. So Minneapolis ought to be cooperating with ICE and Border Patrol on rounding up actual criminals, rapists, murderers, gangbangers, what have you, who also happen to be undocumented. Get them out. And that would be that would correspond with the public's stated desire to go after the worst of the worst and to undo the mistakes of the Biden administration that was incredibly lax on border and immigration policy. So I don't agree with what Minnesota, Minneapolis, and the other sanctuary cities did on this, even though, and this is a separate issue, they have the right to refuse cooperation to the feds.
Right. And again, this just exacerbates the problem. And again, based on Trump's authoritarian tendencies, it infuriates him, which again leads to the political aspect of this, where, he wants to surge all those people into the cities. Layla says, I sense an inconsistency here. When Brian Milanow was shot at home, people said they should have pulled him over in traffic. Now we're saying I should do immigration raids at home. I never said that anybody should be pulled over or taken in traffic, because again, that creates, I've never said that. So I don't know when you're saying people say that, I've never said that. I would think that taking somebody on a rolling in a rolling raid, driving a 3,000-pound weapon, probably not a good idea. Probably easier to knock on somebody's home, knock on somebody's door than it is to try and chase them down in traffic. Look, a lot of us here are not going to agree on this. I think, again, my whole point in bringing JD on and talking about this, just like we did last week when we talked about this, is that there's plenty of blame to go around on the specifics of these issues. But overall, we have to point out that the Second Amendment is sacrosanct. I mean, I am an absolutist when it comes to the Second Amendment. And when you've got a president and his administration and others, and whether this was Obama or Biden or Trump saying it, when they say these things and they are blatantly wrong, it needs to be called out.
Yeah, I mean, let's remember, I mean, the government is always a threat to our liberty, even if for the time being, somebody we support happens to be wielding the power of government. Government itself is always a threat to our liberty, will always be so. And you have to be on guard even against folks you supported when they got in, because human beings are fallible, human beings lie, and the people who seek public office, by and large, are driven by a desire to wield power. So be skeptical of everybody, no matter which letter comes after their name on the ballot. That just doesn't matter. Nobody should be all in for any given political figure. That doesn't make any sense. Our liberty has to be our liberty and sacrosanct across the board, no matter who is exercising that liberty or who is threatening it.
Don't even get JD started on this. Under our laws, officers can kill a person in bed sleeping with no criminal background check and no one is responsible for it. I mean, you know, qualified immunity, and you want to get JD started, let's just talk about qualified immunity and behavior like this from police and no-knock warrants. We could go on for 2 hours about that. I know where JD stands on this, and that's not what we're saying, Frank. We're not endorsing those policies. This is about, again, the Second Amendment. JD?
Yeah, I mean, I would abolish qualified immunity right now, you know, snap my fingers, and if police officers get offended and want to quit their jobs, bye-bye. There's work at Walmart. I mean, that's fine. I got no problem with that whatsoever. So get rid of that. Yeah, get rid of that qualified immunity and treat law enforcement officers on the same level legal plane as we treat everybody else, including treatment of how they conduct themselves in carrying weapons and shooting.
Yeah, and no-knock warrants. The prevalence
and no-knock warrant. Oh yeah, no-knock warrants are horrible. I mean, the whole idea that people need to be arrested by kicking in their door at 2 a.m., surprising them in their beds and asking and finding out exactly how they react to no-knock warrants at 2 a.m. when their homes are raided. That's ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous.
What the hell is an assault weapon? Does that mean that if we hurt your feelings, you should consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can accept that. Here's Michael Dukes. Kind of a but somewhat funny.
JD Tuccille, contributing editor for Reason Magazine, continues with us here. One final segment for this morning in the first hour. Boy, we went down a rabbit hole in the break there talking about qualified immunity and no-knock warrants and everything else. There's plenty of things that that JD and I could get worked up about again. But again, my highlight of this segment was just to point out that the Second Amendment is absolute. And when you have officials and leaders, especially the president of the United States, basically saying things that are antithetical to that or outright lies to that, that's part of the problem. But there's plenty of other issues here, right? I mean, again, going back into the behavior of the police, militarization of the police, no-knock warrants, qualified immunity. There's plenty of problems here, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of fallen away from the conversation about militarization of police, which was a big deal about 10 years ago, and it's still a problem. The police have been elevated in terms of their legal status in this country over the average citizen. That should not be the case. When police were initially implemented as a profession, it was stated that they were just members of the public hired to enforce laws full-time that everybody had the right to do. They should not have an elevated status. They should not be trained to deal with the public as if they're an army of occupation. It's not Fallujah. It's your neighborhood. Act accordingly. They should not be armed up with armored vehicles, body armor at all times, and the weapons of a military force. Well, you need them to act more like members of the community who just happen to have the job of keeping the peace. So that is an ongoing issue. That's local, that's state, and that's federal. We know that, and people discuss that in terms of the ATF. We know, the idea that the ATF was behaving like jackbooted thugs is widely stated on the right in the conservative and libertarian movements. It's also accurate. They were behaving like jackbooted thugs. So are IRS agents. We should recognize that enforcers are enforcers, no matter which laws they're enforcing. And if they're misbehaving, they're misbehaving. And if they're overpowered, they're overpowered.
Right. The FDA, right? I mean, the FDA had a SWAT team, had a tactical team for the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and that's the thing. That's when we went, it's that transition from peace officers to law enforcement officers, right? Because one obviously enforces the peace. The other one is enforcing laws and rights trump laws. That's what it all comes down to. Again, Donna Anthony, who's one of our frequent guests on the program, says, entering the United States illegally is exactly that. It's a violation of the law. And JD corrected that. He said, they should focus on the worst of the worst. But if you do encounter an individual who's here unlawfully, it is still a crime. He said they haven't broken, and what he was talking about when broken any law, except for, he said, entering the country illegally. Then if it's ancillary, that's great. But what they're supposed to be, the surge was supposedly about taking out the worst of the worst. Sure, if you come across somebody who's here illegally, pick them up. That's fine. But the focus should be on those that are doing the most damage, killing the Riley Lakins and things like that out there. And again, if you're here illegally, yeah, you need to go. You absolutely need to go. But we have to do it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, when you're raiding meatpacking plants, when you're raiding construction sites, when you're going to Home Depot and rounding up people who are looking for day work, you're not going after the worst of the worst. When you're surging thousands of federal enforcers to an American city, you're not going after the worst of the worst. So it's not incidental to arresting a murderer, a rapist, or a gangbanger when you're rounding up people in the streets, when you're scooping up families. So it's a matter of who you're targeting. Sure, when you go after murderers, you are going to incidentally pick up other illegals who cross the border, have not committed any serious crimes, but are here illegally. That is true. But that's not targeting them. And what we're seeing now is the administration targeting the general population. That's why you send thousands of troops to a city, targeting the general population of undocumented immigrants. And that's what is angering the public so much. And I get there are some people who support that policy, but you got to be aware that about half the population now wants to abolish ICE because they're so angry about that policy. So you got to think in terms of the consequences of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's an optics thing here at play as well. I want illegals to be deported. I want that to happen, especially the worst of the worst. But again, you have to do it in a way that bolsters your claim, I guess is what I'm saying on this. And no, we're not saying that we hate law enforcement, so apparently JD hates law enforcement. No, that's not what we're saying. There's got to be some culpability to your actions. You can't just have this shield and do whatever you want, which is what has been happening in this country for years with qualified immunity and other things. I mean, I could pull you up 100 different stories of abuses by law enforcement. Just because you back the blue doesn't mean that it's a suicide compact, that everything they do is magic. You have to make sure that they are held accountable, JD.
Yeah, I mean, cops are cops. And that includes whether they enforce laws that you like and enforce laws that you don't like. They have to act with restraint. They should not have elevated legal status over the rest of the civilian population. They should just be civilians who are employed full time to keep the peace. And I also believe that they shouldn't enforce we have way too many laws on the books, and elevating law over our natural rights is a mistake. Absolutely, it always is. So if you enforce them, if you enforce these laws at the expense of our rights, if you train the law enforcers to act as if they're occupying troops and equip them accordingly, you're going to end up with abusive situations with much of the population turning against those enforcers. We saw that with conservatives turning against the ATF, and now we're seeing it with progressives and others turning against ICE. It's obviously beyond progressives when half the population wants to abolish ICE. There are ramifications to elevating the job of police over that, giving them legal status over that of civilian population and letting them act accordingly.
I think part of the problem here is that we've been locked into this binary choice. You either have to support it 100% or you're absolutely against it. And as I said, there are so many shades of gray here. There are so many problems. There's so much blame to go around, from the local politicians and law enforcement to the way that the raids themselves have been happening, to the behavior of the protesters, and everything else. This is not just a binary choice that you're either with us or against us. There are so many nuances to this, and I think in general that's lost on some of the public, that they're not looking at it from every angle, and they're also not looking at it from this 10,000 foot view that we're trying to do this morning, to look at the absolute right, to say this is about this right. There are other issues baked into all this situation, but again, it's not just a binary choice.
Oh, absolutely. And I would ask people to remember that how would you react if ATF was surged with thousands of ATF agents into your community and was hunting, going through the streets and looking for firearms and enforcing laws that a lot of people don't care for, but acting the same way that ICE and Border Patrol are now. Government is not our friend. It's not anybody's friend, even when our team is temporarily in authority. And politicians are not your friend. They're not our friend ever, even when they have the right letter after their names. There are people who sought power, and there's something wrong fundamentally with people who seek and want to use power over other human beings. Keep that in mind. Vote for who you want to at every election, but always be suspect of the results, the government that it entails, and always be consistent in your advocacy of liberty, of natural rights, and of enforcing limitations on the state.
For years, we've talked about the substitution game on this program, especially on Fridays when people start talking about issues related to the Second Amendment. We say, well, apply that to the First Amendment. Apply that to the Fourth Amendment. How would that play out? If it wasn't the ATF, what if it was the IRS? If it wasn't ICE, it was somebody, it was the FDA. I mean, think about how you would react. And like you said, the most important part of this whole thing is, this is how we feel when our guy is in office. What happens when the other team gets somebody in there? Right? Again, government is not your friend. I mean, stop acting like that it is some kind of pure organization that when your guy's in charge, it can do no wrong, because that's not the truth.
And that's exactly right. If it's okay for ICE to behave this way, that means it's going to be okay for the ATF to behave this way when AOC is president. Yeah, the wheel always turns. The wheel always turns. Imagine every power and every conduct that you want to approve for your side in the hands of your worst enemy. If you can't bear that, then your side ought not be behaving that way too.
JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine. If you'd like to sign up for his newsletter where it puts his articles in your email box every week, just sign up for the Rattler. You can go to reason.com and find one of his articles and find the link there to sign up for the Rattler. JD Tuccille, thank you so much for coming on board, my friend. We appreciate you being with us today.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, hold the line for just 1 second. All right, folks, we got more coming up. Hour 2 dead ahead. You get to yell at me up next. JD, I want to just give you a final bite at the apple. Again, you've seen a lot of, and like I said, I knew this show was going to cause some heartache, because some people, again, are into this binary thing of, if you're not for my guy, then you must be, like, for example, like I say, you must hate the police then. That's not what I said. It's not what you said, and people are hearing things that you're not actually saying, which again is, I think, something that goes on a lot today. But I want to give you the final say here on the way out.
Yeah, I mean, the world isn't Manichaean. It's not good guys against bad guys, with all, with everything on the table and all holds barred. The fact of the matter is, we got to live with each other going forward, and the same rules that apply to the other side have got to apply to us, and vice versa. Our liberty has to be everybody's liberty. Our rights have to be everybody's rights. If you want to have your rights protected when the opposition is in power, that means you have to respect the opposition's rights when your side is in power. And if you don't do that, it's just basically a cold civil war going on forever, and maybe not so cold.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And again, I just want people to take a step back and listen to the arguments and the conversations and start thinking about, I mean, I get really, and I said this prior to the last election, I was very concerned about the president's position on the Second Amendment, because it was very schizophrenic. It vacillated widely back and forth. and that concern. And everybody was like, oh, well, do you want Kamala? That's not what I said. I didn't say I wanted Kamala. I think she's the worst choice. But if you don't call out your leaders who you are supporting, then you're complicit in what's going on. You're saying that, oh, my guy can do. No, your guy can do wrong. My guy, I voted for him. My guy can do wrong. And if I don't call him out, I've abdicated my responsibility as a citizen to hold my leaders accountable. Come on. Final thoughts. Sorry, JD.
Well, I'm going to repeat what I said before, which is that government is not our friend. Be skeptical of government no matter who's in power, and really, really be skeptical of its enforcers, because the people who gravitate toward enforcement, no matter what law they're enforcing, are people who generally like kind of pushing other people around. They do. That's just a fact. So keep them restrained, keep them on a short leash. Make sure that they understand who the boss is. And if you want to enjoy your Second Amendment rights or your First Amendment rights, make sure that you understand they apply to everybody. They're not situational to having the right side in power or the wrong side in power. It means that it's always, those rights are always protected. Liberty must always prevail. And there's no such thing as one side being allowed to do whatever it wants to do without that same power passing on to the other side when they take power in turn.
JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you coming on board. As always, it's great to talk with you. We'll chat again soon.
Thank you. You take care.
All right. Thanks for coming on board. And CM, with all due respect, my friend, with all due respect, that's not what he said. He said, stop saying we're binary thinkers. We're hearing what he's saying. He's saying ICE needs to be abolished. No, what he said was that the latest polling is showing that up to almost 50% of Americans want ICE to be abolished. That's what he said. Not that he wanted it to be abolished. He said the alphabet soup law enforcement agencies are wrong and overloaded with tactical equipment. Yes, they are. The militarization of the police is a thing, is a real thing. No-knock warrants and qualified immunity are a problem. But he didn't say that he wanted ICE to be abolished. He said that the polling shows that that's what 50% of the people are saying. I mean, again, you're only hearing part of what he's saying, and you're immediately reacting in that regard. Again, with all due respect, that's not what he said. Go back and listen. There you go. We'll see. We'll see. But again, this is where we're going to make it all. This is where we're going to make it all. I'm sure you guys will love this. We're going to turn the phones on. Let's turn on the phones and we'll see what folks have to say here. Get the phones rolling, and you guys can have your say on this as well. And if you want to argue with me about it, let's argue about it. But the bottom line is you can't keep saying that our side is 100% right all the time, because it's not. Nobody is 100% right all the time. And again, if we don't keep calling these things out, we're going to create some Thanks so much. We're going to create some problems for ourselves. If we don't keep calling it out, it is an abdication of your responsibility if you don't call out your team when they're doing the wrong thing. I 100% believe that. And if that offends you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry it offends you. It doesn't make it any less true in my mind. Right? Don't excuse the behavior of these guys in doing these things. Don't do it. 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. If you want to call up and argue with me, I'm all happy to do it. Want to tell me, how wrong I am? Happy to do it. But look, you got to call this stuff out. And like I said, specifically, I mean, Minneapolis was the pinch point for this. But the bottom line, what I really was trying to focus on was the fact that you've got your leaders, your administration, the president, the leader of the free world, saying things that are absolutely incorrect. You can have a gun. I mean, come on. Jeffrey says, first the militarization of the police, next they nationalize them, and now you have the SS. I mean, and I'm not saying it's going that far, but it is troubling. We've talked about that on this program. The militarization of the police is a huge problem. I support the police, but they have to be responsible. And I think the militarization, qualified immunity, and no-knock warrants are the biggest problems we have today. All right, we got to go.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Duke Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Duke Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, it's for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Duke Show, broadcasting live across the state on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com. I stirred up a hornet's nest. Boy, half the chat room is mad at me, and the other half is kind of agreeing with me on this. And you know what? That's good. Let's get the conversation rolling. I've opened up the phone lines for this Firearms Friday, 319-527-3864. And call and talk to me about this. Again, nuances, folks. There's a lot of details here that we have to work through, and there's plenty of blame to go around on this, but the overarching, for those of you who are just joining us, I'm sorry, we're wound up already. We just finished up with JD Tuccille from Reason Magazine, who was talking about the president and his administration and their reaction to what happened in Minneapolis and their outright misnomers and falsehoods that they were saying about the Second Amendment. That's the problem. All right, I got 2 lines on hold already. See, people, they're going to fly. Miguel is calling in from Fairbanks. Let's start with Miguel and see what he has to say. Good morning, sir. What's on your mind?
Hey, good morning, Mike, and good morning, everybody. I support the right of anybody lawfully concealing carry, but as the old saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. If you're going to conceal carry and then commit felonies and during the day, you have to know there's going to be repercussions. And as we adults can call out leaders, friends, family members when they're wrong. I'm a great Second A supporter. I will always be. That's our constitutional right to bear our arms. And, it's when your kid is wrong, when your local leaders are wrong, when your federal leaders, they're wrong. Somebody just maybe needs to take, I voted for the guy too. I think he's the better of the two, enforcing laws. And that's the way it is. Somebody needs to sit him down and say, hey, this falls well in the realm of Second Amendment for everybody.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I 100% agree. And I agree that, that Alex Preddy or anybody has the right to carry a firearm with them wherever they need to go, whether it's to a protest or the grocery store. But again, you also have to make good decisions when you're doing those things. Yep. And Preddy made some poor decisions. There's no doubt about it. Now, did he deserve to be killed? I don't believe that that's true. But he did. He made some bad decisions there. So, again, there's nuances and there's plenty of blame to go around on this. And but the president's reaction and Piro's reaction, Kash Patel's reaction, those are all, it's ridiculous. And they should be called out for that.
Yeah, I mean, no one human being is perfect. We are all not perfect, because if we were perfect, we would be having this conversation right now. Also on the other issue, I'm sorry. My father came here legally. He became a citizen, lived the American dream. If you came here illegally, like Tom Homan says, they're going after the worst of the worst, but nobody is off the table. If you came here illegally, you broke the law. I find it absolutely ridiculous that all these people support breaking our immigration laws, whether you're a rich celebrity or not,
right,
but are willing to go on a vacation in another country or even live in another country and not break their immigration laws, but then protest to break our immigration laws. I find that horrific. We are a nation of laws.
Right.
If you come here illegally, point blank, you're illegally, and then you're spitting on the faces or putting your foot on the necks of the throats of all those who came here legally, followed the law, no matter how long it took them to become a citizen. And you're just spitting on those people and their families.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, you broke the law. You broke the
it's
law
just
to get here.
ridiculous.
Yeah, you broke the law coming into this country illegally, and as you said, jumping the line basically means that everybody who's doing it legally, you're spitting on what they're doing, and you need to go. You wouldn't be allowed to go into Mexico. You wouldn't be allowed to go into Argentina or China or Russia. You wouldn't be able to break into those countries and have no consequences. You need to go. I'm 100% with you on that.
And there's no such thing as, oh, they need due process. No, the due process was you had to request to come in here legally. So you don't get due process on the way out because you broke the law on the way in. No, sir. Yeah. That's like saying, oh, I murdered somebody, but it's okay because I didn't. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. All right. Thank you, Miguel. Appreciate you calling in. Let's go over to Ron, who's up in North Pole. Ron, how are you, my friend?
I'm well today, Michael. I've tossed this thing around in my head for, a week and a half now, and have watched a number of videos. And all of a sudden it struck me this morning that we need to go back to the basics of the issue. And as far as the use of deadly force by law enforcement, there are three absolute elements that have to be present. There has to be opportunity, which he had. There has to be ability, which he clearly had. And there has to be jeopardy. Well, I'm afraid I didn't see any jeopardy there.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you on that. The Renee Good shooting, I think, was legitimate. She was using her vehicle. She struck the officer with her vehicle. Again, regardless of the circumstances of everything that was going on in the totality, that was justifiable. I've watched this thing of Peretti from every angle that I could find, every video that I could find. And again, I'm finding it hard to believe that they were in jeopardy with 5 of them on him and his gun already being off of his person, being taken away by another officer. So again, there's plenty of blame to be going around here. But, the problem is that that's where we are in this situation, is that there's plenty of blame. And so it's being slung everywhere.
Correct. But at any rate, that's my take on it. So, so be it.
Yeah,
we'll
is.
Talk to you again, Michael.
Appreciate it. It's
Bye-bye.
hard. It's hard when your team makes a mistake. And I'm 100% in favor of these ICE pickups, but can we do them I like what JD said, in the Tom Holman fashion versus in what we're seeing right now. Let's see. Robert is calling in. Let's see what Robert has to say. Good morning, Robert. What's on your mind?
Morning, Mike. Just look at the age of the men that are being picked up. It's not, young people and old people. It's military age people. And I believe we had a backdoor military invasion, and we need to defend ourselves. We need ICE to fight this battle, because that's who we need to fight it. We don't need our regular military, because they don't have weapons in their hands yet, but they could sooner or later. And one more thing I want to tell you about, my buddy told me you took my comment about Rick Rydell wrong. He's a nothing burger. He went to work for our state with Dunleavy. He was a big right-hand man for Dunleavy, and he's done nothing. He was the guy who blew talk radio open in Anchorage 25 years ago, and he has been a big nothing burger. But you, Mike, I listened to you. I found you up in Fairbanks when I was working there 1 week, and I've been enjoying your show since then. And I agree with you 99% of the time.
Well, I appreciate that, Robert. And I agree. I think we need ICE. I don't want ICE to fight a war. I want ICE to enforce the law. That's I want to be nuanced about what you just said there. Their job is to take these people and deport them. It's not to fight them. It's not a military in the street action. We should be taking them down in the calmest, coolest way, most efficient way possible and deporting them. You're 100% right on that. I don't want to fight wars on the streets. We don't need that. And it is concerning that most of the people that are being picked up are military-age males. And I don't know if that's just coincidence or if there is some kind of deeper play here. But like you saw in Colorado, whole apartment buildings being taken over by MS-13, which are military. It's a quasi-paramilitary organization, and they're all military-age males. You're making a point there. But again, ICE's job is not to fight it in the street, but to enforce the law, immigration law. And that's what we need.
Well, Mike, people think ICE is Walmart security. This is pretty serious stuff. At any moment, the ones they're going after are pretty much gangbangers, and they could have guns and they know how to use them.
Sure.
So their life is on the line. They're not Walmart security guards.
No, and I'm not saying they are. Again, I'm not complaining that the way that they're armed or the way that they're dressed. I'm saying we shouldn't, in our minds, we don't want to welcome a war in the street. If they want to bring one, fine, but they need to be enforcing the law, not judge, jury, and executioner on the point, which I'm not saying that they're doing. But I just want to clarify what your language is when you're saying we're fighting this war on the streets. It needs to be an enforcement action. We need to bring them out, bring them to justice, deport them, put them to the back of the line. That's what needs to happen to keep our streets safe. Robert, I appreciate your kind. Go ahead.
Bye-bye.
No, okay. Appreciate your kind words. Thank you so much. Fred is on the line from Rhode Island, and that leaves 4 lines open if you want to call in and tell me if I'm wrong or right. 319 527-3864, 319-527-3864 if you want to call in. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Even CM in the chat room, if you want to call up and discuss this with me, I'd love to hear what you have to say on it. Good morning, Fred. How are you?
Well, Mike, this whole thing goes back, we're looking at the current situation and the current day as to what's going on, the ICE situation and, these the gangbangers and the problematic illegals that are in the country causing all the problems. They're trying to get them out, which is a good thing. However, you're forgetting one very important aspect, especially with the upcoming midterm elections coming up. The Democrats, Biden, Obama, Clinton, Schumer, Schiff, all of these clowns are responsible for the situation we are in today. And that gets overlooked. I mean, people have that like a 10-minute memory, and after 10 minutes, it all goes up in smoke. But you can't do that because you got to go back to the source. They caused the problem. We are in the situation today because Biden and the ship of fools that were basically controlling him, pushing things around and pushing their agenda for whatever reason. And I think the reason's rather obvious, actually. It's just power, absolute power control to take over. And you figure they get 20 million illegals in here and give them the opportunity to vote. You know what? You're never going to get them out of office. And that's exactly what they want. Lie, cheat, steal. That's the background. But people overlook that. It's not just the situation we're in now with ICE. They started this problem. They have to be held accountable. And if Trump doesn't get off his butt and hang these clowns once and for all for what they're doing, then I think, the whole thing's a waste of time.
I hope you don't mean literally hang people, Fred.
Oh, I wish the hell he would. But then again, you have to go by what it is.
Well, we have to.
I wouldn't blame him if he did.
We have to hold people accountable
for
we have to hold people accountable for the actions. And yes, under Biden, the borders became a sieve. I mean, and porous. And that's why we've seen it. And let's face it, the Democrats are benefiting from the illegal immigration. That's why they're fighting so hard against this voter ID thing, which ironically, even CNN had to admit that something like 82% of the country they want ID for voter. It's not an issue, even though the Democrats keep trying to make it one. And so, again, we need to enforce the laws that are on the books in this country as far as, illegal immigration and everything else. I think that's a prime example of it, but we need to do it in the right way that, again, can have that public support. And I don't know, as beating people down on the street or people getting killed in the street is helping that situation. I think it should be more targeted, like the Holman thing.
Well, you're absolutely right. So the problem is, though, then they're not going to play fair. They're going to continue with Antifa and all these radical groups that they got. These people, they're troublemakers. The Summer of Love people that just said, burn the town to the ground, just for the sake of burning it to the ground to promote their cause. And they don't care. So I mean, how do you sit there and take it on the chin and sit there? Well, we're not going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not promoting, we should get into war in the streets, but there has to be call out, there has to be responsibility, you have to turn the rock over to see the slime crawling around underneath and call them out and show them up to the world as to what they really are.
Yeah. Well,
if you don't do that, like I say, it's a waste of time.
I think that's what, isn't that what the Epstein files are all about at this point? I mean, Jesus, when are we?
Well, that's more of a distraction. I think that the Epstein files is more of it's smoke and mirrors time. They can be doing other things.
I believe, Fred, that exposes a lot of people. And I think it shows a lot. And I think it shows you the rot that's in the elites in this nation. I think it shows a lot of things. I don't believe everything that's there, but there's enough there to make me go, this is a hot mess. So anyway, Fred, I appreciate your call. Thank you for calling in. That leaves all the lines open, 319-527-3864. We're going to continue here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're going to be back with more here in just a moment. One more segment for your phone calls, then Willie Waffle at the end of the hour. We'll be back right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, all 4 lines are open. All 5 lines are open if you want to call in and everything else. Richie makes a point here. He said Soldotna had an enforcement action with ICE as intended, and people barely knew about it until after the fact. Minnesota is desperate to distance themselves from the embarrassment, the deep-level Somali fraud perpetrated against the taxpayers, like everything else, finger-pointing. And I 100% agree. Again, that's the targeted, quiet, we slink in, we get them, we pull them out. There's plenty of blame to be laid at the feet of people like Tim Walz and Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, and all these people who are out there stirring the people up in an effort to deflect from what's going on in their own community, right? But don't play into that. Don't play into that. That's the problem. I am glad and grateful for every one of those people that's being picked up and pulled off the street. Because again, yeah, if you saw the new stats that just came out at the number of kids who've been picked up, and the trafficking rings that have been busted up on this. Holman came out with some numbers early this morning, late last night, like 140,000 kids. That's what CM was just saying. Bring up the stats of all the kids that have been retrieved by the FBI. It's huge. It's huge. That's some evil there. And that's the kind of evil we need to put out of this country. But in doing so, we cannot lose sight of our fundamental rights and the fact that our politicians and the people who are supposed to be leading us are okay with misrepresenting those rights. That's my point. Again, not to say that we wanted the other person in office or whatever. I mean, this is part of that problem. And Gary or Lisa or Gary or Lisa and Gary. The problem with the law is that the judges on the catch and release, there's only disdain for the law at this point. That's another problem. That's another part of it. Again, another nuance, another piece of this. Yes, I agree. When you break the law and the fact that these communities are allowing these people back on the street after they've committed crimes. I mean, again, this goes back to those communities not wanting to participate in protecting. And again, it's mostly Democratic cities and Democratic areas where they benefit from these illegals. They benefit from them as a voter bloc, and so they don't want to deport it, or they don't want to cooperate with ICE or whatever. I mean, it's just crazy. There is no one single magic bullet solution to this. That's what I was talking about in this binary. Oh, it's only one way or the other. And we've got to be smart about this. We've got to be smart. Again, going back to what Richie was saying about this Soldotna action for ICE. That, again, nobody knew about it until after it was over. That's what you want. I'm backing up here to read some of the comments. Ben says, which officer should lay his life down so that the man who's fighting them gets the benefit of the doubt? I think it's a false argument, Ben, with all due respect. 5 guys got him pinned, his arms out in front of him. The other officers disarmed him and walked away. I mean, I don't know. In watching every angle I could, every video that I could find, every analysis that I could find, slow-mo, the whole thing, with sound, no sound, everything else. I don't think that's a valid argument. I really don't. Should he have fought them? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I just think that that's a false argument. That officer's going to lay down his life so that the man who's fighting them gets the benefit of the doubt. He was already pinned. I think the Renee Good shooting, pretty cut and dried. That was clearly justifiable. This one, not so much. Problematic, to say the least. I see Brian's on the line. We're going to get to Brian here as soon as we get back. I'm just scrolling backwards. We don't know what the police officer saw in the heat of the moment, and we won't because they didn't have body cameras. So that's part of the problem there. Now they're putting body cameras on ICE, which I think is a good idea. But yeah. All right, we're going to continue here. Jumping back into it, the Michael Dukes Show.
What the hell's an assault weapon? What isn't? If I assault you with a penguin, doesn't that make it an assault weapon? Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
Okay, welcome back. One final segment here where the phone line's open. Brian is on the phone. He wants to sound out this morning. Let's see what he has to say as we continue our discussion on Minneapolis and the Trump administration and the reactions, et cetera, et cetera. Good morning, my friend. What's on your mind?
Oh, man, it's early and my brain is just slowly waking up and I'm not talking too clear. But I just wanted to call and say I disagree with you 100%. I really don't, but I just wanted to say that.
You just wanted to
say I don't get to say that very often. I think in the larger context, I'm not going to dispute that there was a lot of stupid involved in the Peretti shooting. I think it's being portrayed as some sort of brutal execution. Which is wrong. I think it was a case, and I think Ben Carpenter called it the fog of war, and we have the benefit of slow-mo and watching it back and forth on multiple angles all at the same time. So
I agree with
there
that.
was some carelessness in there on everybody's behalf. But what I also wanted to sort of point out is I ran and watched an article by a guy named Tom Grieve, who's a lawyer on the YouTube world. And he does a short blurb on protesting while armed, 16 states that could slap you with felony charges and avoid doing this. I think as gun owners and absolutists in terms of the Second Amendment, I think that there is a lot of good advice to be gleaned from that and a lot of thoughts about avoiding getting in that situation where you could potentially, at least at a state level, be nailed with a felony for just happening to be in the same area as a protest. And I guess the bigger question is, when does a protest cease to be a protest and become a riot?
Right. No, I mean, I agree with you that the Peretti shooting, although I think in hindsight and in slow-mo and everything else, there's going to be some problems with it. They're going to have some problems justifying it. But at the moment, when you, like you said, in the fog of war, the heat of the moment, the scramble, the fight, I think bad decisions were made, and maybe decisions were made without the full understanding or the benefit of what we can see later on in slow motion. I agree with that. I don't think it was intentional. I don't think it was an execution, quote unquote. I think it was a mistake. I think it was some bad decisions went in there, starting with Peretti fighting with law enforcement. I think that was the start of it. He should have just, at that point, when they're going to say you're going down and he's got a guy on his back, he should have just, put his hands behind his back and said, okay, cuff me, take me to jail. He didn't do that, because then you could fight it out in court as a bad arrest. And then, of course, the actions of the officers and everything else. There was a lot of bad decisions that went in there. I'm not saying it's intentional, and I agree with that. There's a lot of fog going on there. But we need to understand that when we go forth armed, there is a responsibility on our part. And I think most concealed carry classes teach this now, that de-escalation is your number one priority. That yes, you are armed, but your number one priority is to retreat from danger no matter what. Get you and the people you love out of the way. And if that means that you de-escalate or leave the situation first, and that's your first best option, that's what you should do. And so going into these situations, you have to understand that you shouldn't be in altercations or trying to pick a fight with somebody while you're armed. That's a bad idea.
Yep. Well, anyway, I just wanted to say happy Friday. Thanks for your show and getting JD on there and for all the comments. Have a great weekend and stand governable, my friends.
Thank you, my friend. It's good to hear from you. Thanks for calling in. All right, we got another call here on hold. I don't know who this is, so let's find out. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Name's David, calling from Fairbanks.
Hey, David, what's on your mind, my friend?
Well, first off, I just wanted to say thank you to you. I listen to your show on my way to work in the morning, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the discussions and the point of views, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Second off, I agree with what you're saying on even if you may like Trump and his administration, you still need to hold them accountable. That's just something we do as responsible people. And just because you find him maybe making a mistake or making an error, I don't think that's any reason to jump administrations or condemn the guy. There's obviously going to be lots of mistakes as we transition through this.
Right.
And then as for the immigration, I don't know how many of these people have traveled overseas or had experience with other people's immigration. But if you were to go over to Asia and illegally immigrate in, you will have to worry about the police, but it's their own local people who are going to tell you that you need to not do that. It's their own local people who are not going to hire you because you don't have a proper work visa.
Right.
It's their own local people who are not going to go against their government to help you. So what we have happening in America, it's odd, it's weird. And I guess my point is, with seeing all these people oppose Trump the way they do, how can we really expect the Trump administration not to make mistakes?
Yeah, well, and I would agree with that. And let's just look at it. Under Obama, Tom Homan got a presidential medal for the number of people he deported, hundreds of thousands more than has been deported under Trump. I mean, and they were all okay with that. This really does. I mean, I hate to use the TDS Trump derangement syndrome thing, but that's really what this is about. We hate this guy so much that anything he does is wrong and we'll stand against it. When our guy did it, it was fine. When this guy does it, it's horrific and inhumane and everything else. And I think that's part of the problem, is that we've gotten so wrapped up into the political aspect instead of what's right and wrong and common sense, that everything has become politics, that because your guy's doing it, it's evil. When our guy did it, it was just and good and holy. And that's part of the problem.
It is. And that's why I'm saying so much to you guys, or to you, I appreciate your show because you kind of bring some of this to light and you give everybody the ability to talk about it and discuss it. And which is what I wanted to say. When you go overseas, these people, they enforce their immigration laws. They don't want people moving in illegally. They want you to follow the law. They want you to be part of their society, but legally. So it's really off kilter, I guess, in America when you have American citizens who don't even want to support the American law. They want to let illegals flood in, and they don't even know that you couldn't do that. You couldn't go over to Asia, Europe, anywhere else,
Mexico,
illegally immigrate in, and then go to work.
Yeah, you can't go to Mexico. You can't go to almost any South American nation. You will be put in prison and then deported after you serve your sentence.
Yes.
That's what it's like.
So basically what they're telling me is when I go overseas, I need to follow the law. And if I don't, I'm an idiot. But when they come over to America, they don't need to follow the law. So I guess in conclusion to what I'm saying, with all the madness that the Trump administration is dealing with, everybody just expects the mistakes. We'll try to just stick out, the tough road here. make it to the end, and hopefully we end up in a better spot.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right, my friend. And I hope more people can look at this analytically like you just did and say, we got to be able to call out the bad calls. We got to call the balls and the strikes. I appreciate it, David. Thank you for calling in and being part of it today. I appreciate your kind words on the show. If I can just get people to think about this, that's what I really want to do. I want people to think. All right, we're coming up on the break. We've got more coming up. Willie Waffle is going to be joining us with our weekend movie review. Thank you for all your calls and commentary. If you want to send me an email, you can do it by sending it to me at michaeldukeshow.com, me@michaeldukeshow.com. Would love to hear from you there. We got to go. Back with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and michaeldukeshow.com.
Okay, we are in the break, and
goodbye.
I've shut the phone lines down because we got Willie coming up here in just a minute. I'm going to go through all the comments real quick here. Let me change. I got to change my theme. Got to change. See, there we go. All warm and golden. That's what we need. The golden age of. Okay. We'll go over here and see what you guys have to say. Turn that off. Turn that off. Turn that off. Okay. Over here. We scroll back here a little bit here to see what you guys are saying. Even if the illegals being picked up aren't the worst of the worst, people also need to keep in mind illegals are also causing damage to our infrastructure, depleting services that are intended to help Americans. Yes, 100%. 100%. How do illegals get food stamps, get housing? I know, being an American, it's hard to get those things. You have to prove that's a lot of this. 100%, right? How are they jumping the queue on those things? Yeah. Lisa and Gary says, MD in the morning, it's Lisa. Okay, so from now on, I know it's Lisa in the morning. Ben says, these officers don't have the benefit of slow-mo. I agree, Ben. There's a lot of fog of war going on there. There's a lot of, there's just some bad calls made. Again, not intentional, just bad calls. Let's see. The fog of war is a real factor that you don't suffer from watching the video. Agreed. Brian says, buy body camera stock, I did not see any de-escalating of either killing. I think there's no de-escalating on the part of the protesters. And I saw that there should have been some more de-escalation on the part of ICE, in my opinion, especially in the Peretti one. But again, bad choices being made all around. Well, I guess sometimes standing up for our rights might mean we might get detained for exercising them. Yes. In my humble opinion, says Terry, 90% of the protesters, rioters don't even know why they're doing it. I would agree. There's a lot of sheeple out there that, they know why they're doing it, Terry. They're doing it because they hate the president. That's why they're doing it. You can go out on YouTube right now and find hundreds of man on the street videos at a variety of these different protests, ICE, Palestine, all these other ones, and say, well, what it is. My favorite one is this gay lady who goes out with a camera and a microphone and asks other gay people on the street, what rights have you lost? Because they'll be talking about, under Trump and we're all going to die. And it's good. And she'll say, what rights have you lost? And they just, they don't know. I agree. There's a lot of people out there that just don't know. Jedediah says, while living in South Korea, the locals were given bounty rewards for turning in illegal workers. Ooh, there you go. There's a new system. You can monetize that right now. Preddy didn't need to be shot in hindsight only. In the moment, he was a threat, regardless of one gun being removed by one officer unbeknownst to the others. One officer sees the gun, yells gun, and grabs it out of instinct. Fog of war, don't fight law enforcement because they could perceive wrong and still be right. Again, I think it's going to be problematic to justify the shooting, but I can see how in the heat of the battle, the heat of the fight and the struggle that they made, that's how those decisions were made. Again, mistakes were made. It happens. Again, Preddy could have stopped all this by just lying quiet, right? When they tried to take him down. But again, he's already had a history of this. 11 days before that, he did exactly the same thing and got into a wrestling match with an officer, and they let him go. Eventually, maybe he thought that's what was going to happen here. I think he should have been arrested the first time. But because at that point, he was carrying a firearm and he destroyed government property, which is a felony when you're carrying a firearm. They should have arrested him then, and it may have bypassed this whole thing. But there you go. I'm just scrolling through some of the comments here. The locals down there will absolutely turn you in. I love it. Petty process of natural selection. Yeah. Anyway, phone line is buzzing. We're ready to go. It's that time again. Let's get to it. We're going to turn it on to a little bit of lighter side. I think Willie's worried about having enough, but let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show. Okay, the weekend. Willie Waffle comes in every week to give us the entertainment and movie review, the entertainment news, and just to, let's face it, I just bring Willie on because I love Willie, and it's kind of a Friday hang. It's just what we like to do. And we call it work. Anyway, Willie Waffle, hello, my friend. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fine, but I feel like Hollywood is letting us down this week. It's like, okay, so we got the Olympics starting up. We've got the Super Bowl. It's like Hollywood went, yeah, we're good. We can't compete with that.
Yeah.
So you are not going to get, let me be honest with you, the most stellar of product this week out in theaters or in streaming. Not even the news is all that awesome. How's that for selling a segment right there?
You're doing it. You're selling it.
I am too honest for my own stinking good.
That's okay. That's okay. I actually am bringing one news story to the fold today, which I saw yesterday was pretty amazing, and I thought we'll share it just because it tweaks my inner nerd a little bit. So we'll get to that. But let's start with what you got. What do you got for entertainment news, my friend?
I have the end of daytime talk. It is upon us, people.
The death knell.
It is really, yeah. I mean, it really has been evolving over the last several years. I mean, the court shows are a lot more popular. You're starting to see game shows making a comeback, and the daytime talk show has kind of been waning. And this week was a great example of what's going on. So we had two major announcements. The first one is that the Sherry Shepherd show is being canceled. It's over.
Who's
that's
Sherry
it.
Shepherd?
Okay, so she's a comedian and actress who was given a daytime talk show a few years ago, and as you can tell, it's getting canceled because nobody watches it and nobody knows that it's on.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
that's the lighter one. Now here's the bigger one. This is the one that makes me go, oh man, daytime talk is in a big problem. The Kelly Clarkson show is ending.
Whoa. Okay.
After 7 seasons. Now, and I say this is a big deal because she really took up the mantle from Ellen.
Right.
And she really became the talk show. Like, I think you can honestly say over the years, there's always one big premier talk show.
Sure,
It's
sure.
Donahue or it's Oprah. You know,
Right.
for a long time it was Jerry Springer. Then it was Ellen, and that transitioned to Kelly Clarkson. And she's had 7 amazing seasons. I mean, it is one of the highest rated talk shows that is out there. She's won 24 daytime Emmys. She's won Best Host 4 years in a row. She's won Best Daytime Talk Show 4 years in a row. But for those of you who know, her former manager and her ex-husband passed away from cancer.
Oh, geez.
Just last year.
Oh, wow.
And with that happening, a lot of priorities have changed. The biggest priority is that she has 2 kids.
Oh,
and she needs to give them more time.
Yeah.
She needs to be around more, and you can't do that when you're running a daytime talk show. And so she has made the announcement that, hey, I'm handing this off. I'm moving on. She'll do other things. I think other things that are easier on the schedule, maybe some sort of weekly program. Maybe she goes back to The Voice or American Idol or something where she's not, working. And let's be honest, these daytime talk shows, you see them for an hour a day, but you're putting in 12 and 14 hours a day. There's a lot of late night calls and meetings. I mean, it is all consuming to your life. It is not conducive to being a single mother, which is where she is right now.
Right.
God love her. I think she's done a really good show. I think, I hope that whatever she does next, she enjoys, because I think she's been a pretty good talk show host.
Yeah, and good to go out on top. I mean, it's not like she's been in decline. It's not like she's declining and they're about to cancel her anyway. She goes out on top on her terms. And like you said, the kids, that's important. I mean, I could see that for sure. So good for her. Good for her. All right. What else we got?
Well, we're going to talk about a couple of shows that are having sequels that are coming back. And the number one, or the next one that we'll talk about, Man on the Inside. Now, this is a Netflix series. This is with Ted Danson. We've talked about it on the show a number of times. He plays this older gentleman. He's recently widowed, and he gets a job working as a private investigator. He is the man who goes undercover where you need an older gentleman who can go undercover. So like season 1, he went to a senior living facility to investigate a crime, a theft. In season 2, he went undercover as a professor at a small school to find out who was trying to blackmail the president of the school and break up a deal for a big donor that was trying to take over the school. And now we're going to have a season 3. They have announced that, yes, they're going to make another one. We don't know what the mystery is going to be this time around, but we do. I would say it's likely that we're going to see it in the fall. We've seen Man on the Inside in the fall. The last couple of years, they could start doing this now. They could have it ready by November, which is kind of when they had season 2 come out. So maybe season 3 by November. Ted Danson with his show, which the first season, if you've never seen it, I thought was amazing. I think it's fantastic. It really got into a lot of themes of, not just, the funniness of him being undercover and not knowing what he's doing.
Right,
but, a lot about, getting older, relationships with your family and your friends, losing your friends, trying to have a purpose in life. It was really very, very touching. Season 2 was solid. It was more focused on the mystery, but we'll see how season 3 goes.
Yeah, I haven't even watched it ever. So, I guess it would be something. Maybe it's something I'll save for my senior years. Anyway, that'd be good. That leaves you with what? Jury Duty?
Jury Duty season 2.
Okay.
Now, if you all don't remember Jury Duty was on Freevee television back in 2023, I want to say it was. This was one of the most brilliant ideas I have come across. Okay. It is a behind-the-scenes look at jury duty. We have a camera crew embedded with the jury, following them every moment of the day, following their reactions to the trial, except here's the catch. It's all a prank show on one person. Only one member of the jury thinks all this is real. Everybody else is an actor, and they are making it the craziest, most outrageous trial you have ever seen in your life.
Oh my God.
It's very, very funny. It is very, very funny. And so they're going to have a season 2. Now, they're not going to be able to pull off the jury thing again, but they came up with an even better idea. An unsuspecting man has just been hired at a family hot sauce company, and he's going away on their big company retreat. And there is going to be chicanery afoot that he is shocked. He can't believe he has taken this job, and now he is stuck on a retreat. He's so funny. So it's so like in Jersey. The thing I really loved was one of the producers of those, James Marsden, the actor. He actually appears in the show as James Marsden, and the joke is he's roped into jury duty. He want to be there. He's trying to use all of his fame to get out of it. It's hilarious.
Oh my gosh! All right, so that's coming out. What, next month? Is that when it's coming out?
That's like next month, like in March. So
okay.
Yeah, March, a little bit late in March. You'll be able to check it out. I think it's gonna be kind of funny because let's face it, we've all worked places where we're like, I can't believe these people.
Okay.
I think they're all insane.
You're looking around for the candid camera, right? Like when Candid Camera was like, you're all looking for it. And this poor guy is going to be working for some hot sauce company, and he's going to, eventually, I guess, figure it out. All right. Well, that's your news. I had an interesting read. I was reading some insider stuff about Henry Cavill, who is the producer now, the producer and star of the new Amazon series, the 40K, the Warhammer 40K series.
Oh, which he loves.
Yeah,
Warhammer.
which he loves Warhammer, right?
Yes.
So this was the interesting part. He actually has been going over this with the writers and doing like up until 4 a.m. deep dives and briefs on everything that's in there. Now, this is how dedicated this guy is to it. He, after everything and all the scripts were written, he actually came back and had them change 300 exchanges in the script to make sure that they were canonical with the grimdark theme of 40K in the thing. That's how serious. I mean, this is what he was missing in The Witcher, right? He didn't have that kind of executive producer control. Go ahead.
And he wasn't as obsessed as he is with Warhammer.
Oh man, and because Warhammer,
there are legendary stories about how he just won't shut up talking about Warhammer when he's on sets and he's with his friends, and now he's making this.
It's gonna be amazing, because when you have that kind of passion for a project like this, like I don't even care about Warhammer, right? I mean, I vaguely know what it's about, and I vaguely have an idea of what it's all going. I'm a D&D guy, not a 40K guy, right? So that's a whole thing, but he is so into it. And they were like, yeah, he's like staying up till like 4 a.m. doing the script rewrites and all this kind of stuff. And you know what? He's flexing that muscle. He's flexing it, and he made them change like 300 different lines and exchanges in the scripts to make sure that it was canonical. He is going to be, it's going to be just dead on for what he's looking for. So, I mean, I will watch Henry Cavill read the newspaper. I mean, I think the guy is just such a great actor. I just love his energy. I love everything. The second that he stopped being The Witcher, I've watched everything else he's done. He's done some amazing work over the years. And so, and I just can't wait. So maybe I'll get a new obsession. Maybe I'll be into 40K when it's all said and done. But this is going on. I just thought that was such a great, it was such a great example of opposites, comparing it to The Witcher. What's going on with 40K, considering what happened in The Witcher. This is some good stuff.
Well, and such a difference with how so many people like, and I'm not saying this just in the acting world, but in the whole world, it's like, did my paycheck clear? Okay, great. Let's go.
Exactly.
Let's go home.
No, he was in it to win it. All right, let's move over to the streams and movies. We got about 4 minutes here, 5 minutes. Where do you want to start?
All right, let's go low to high. Let's go with Dracula in theaters.
Oh no!
Why is there a horror movie every single week? I mean, like, isn't the rest of the world scary enough?
Okay.
But yes, this is the love story Dracula, I guess, from Luc Besson, who is the director of The Fifth Element and The Professional, and we see the origins of Dracula, that Vlad the Impaler, in the 15th century, obsessed with this woman that is his wife. But while he's off to war, his enemies kill her, and he renounces God, and God punishes him by making him Dracula. And he lives on this earth for decades and decades and decades until he thinks he has found his reincarnated love.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, it's as bad as it sounds like. Okay,
well,
like
look, I like me a Luc Besson film. I think he's a great filmmaker. I mean, visually and storytelling, I think he does good stuff. I mean, but is it bad? Is it just that bad? What's up?
Why is he making Twilight? That's what I want to know. I mean, like, he tries to make it somewhat horror, and then there's this huge heaping helping of love and yearning, and there's very melodramatic staging. All the costumes are over the top, all the dialogue is over the top. It's like campy and cheesy in all the wrong ways. I mean, it just isn't working, man. Even Christoph Waltz cannot save this movie. I'm at one waffle in this little cartoon escape.
Oh, Terry's going to be crushed. Terry is going to be crushed. She told me last night, ask Willie about Dracula. All right, one waffle. You're going to be dead to her. All right, let's move on to the next one then on the list.
All right, then we'll quick go to Solo Mio with Kevin James. This is also in theaters. And here he plays the man who has a destination wedding in Italy. It's his dream. He's finally met the woman he's always wanted, and she leaves him at the altar. And now he's stuck in Italy. And it was not only their wedding, but also their honeymoon.
Oh, geez.
So he decides, well, I guess I'm just going to enjoy the rest of the honeymoon because he can't get the money back. And along the way, maybe, do you think, he might find a way to mend his broken heart?
Oh.
Why, could it be the vivacious cafe owner down the street, played by Nicole Grimaudo? Oh, maybe. Probably. Yeah.
Probably.
And, listen, this is, okay, Kevin James, we all know him as a very funny, slapstick, kind of silly comedy guy. And there are moments of that here in this movie. But this is also a chance for him to have a lot more heart and a lot more soul. It reminds me of when John Candy back in the 80s did the movie Only the Lonely, where he's like, I want to show people that I can be a romantic leading man, that I have a serious side. And that's what this movie's all about. I'm at 3 waffles. I think it's very heartwarming. I think it's very sweet. It's not the greatest movie ever, but it's a feel-good movie, and that's what counts.
Okay. All right. So Solo Mio, which leaves us with The Muppets. We got about a minute here.
Yes, The Muppet Show maybe is back. As Kermit very slyly says in the beginning of the show, hey, if this works out, hopefully we'll be doing a lot more. And that's the whole point. They really do want to bring back The Muppet Show. So this is on Disney Plus right now, and it is the celebration of the 50th anniversary of The Muppet Show. And they do it just like the original Muppet Show, the original opening, the whole idea that Kermit is the producer backstage trying to put on the show while there's disaster backstage, there's disaster on stage. He's got to deal with all the accidents and horrible, terrible things that are going on around him. He's got to deal with Miss Piggy's ego and narcissism.
Oh,
he's got to deal with the band. He's got to do all that. And this is actually hosted by Sabrina Carpenter, who kind of looks like a Muppet. And I'm allowed to make that joke because she kind of makes it too in the show. Okay, people? So, listen, it is very nostalgic for people who are fans of the original Muppet Show that aired in the 70s. And the idea that, hey, it's like Saturday Night Live with Muppets.
Right.
It's funny. It's maybe not as cutting and not as ironic and not as witty as the original one. I think they were trying to play it a little safe because they do want to put it on Disney Plus. It also aired on ABC this week. I'm at 3 waffles.
Okay.
I want to see more. Let's bring it back.
Okay. All right. The Muppet Show, Disney Plus and ABC. Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Back with more on Monday, folks. Have a great weekend. And here you thought we wouldn't have enough to talk about. Jeez, we ran long. It's all good. It's all good, though. Willie Waffle.
Funny thing.
What was that?
So the Muppet Show gave me a line that I'm going to sneak in sometime when nobody realizes it's from the Muppet Show. When Statler and Waldorf are 2 very critical gentlemen up in the balcony.
The hecklers, right?
Yep. They ask him, what do you think of the show? He goes, well, it's not half bad. It's all bad. Yeah.
I can see
you're
that's using
a good one.
You're using that on the next One Waffle movie. I can tell you right
somehow,
there. Somehow going to make it all good. All right, my friend. What are we looking for next week? You give us something to look forward to.
That will be Crime 101. Yes, Mr. Chris Hemsworth is back as this elite criminal who's trying to pull off a caper while the LA cops are on his tail.
Okay. All right. A criminal trying to do it. That's not his usual gig. So I guess we'll see. We'll see how that goes. We'll be looking forward to it. Until then, enjoy, my friend. Have a great weekend. Take some time off. I'll write you a doctor's note if you need it or whatever. So just let me know. I'm happy.
I just have to recover from all the wings I'm going to eat on Sunday during the game.
I know you're going to be like sucking them down left and right. All right. Well, I take all the calories out for you. There's no guilt for you. How about that? I did something. Don't ever say I didn't do anything for you.
It's chicken. It's got protein.
Yeah.
I've been told protein's good.
Protein is good, my friend. All right. Willie Waffle, we'll see you, my friend. Thanks for coming on board. Folks,
see you next week.
We will see you next Monday. Be kind. Love one another. Live well.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.